Hi. We unfortunately have to talk about former Vice President and former Indiana Governor Mike Pence. I don't like talking about Mike Pence that often because I'm honestly like embarrassed to live in the same state as him. But, you know, unfortunately, a thing happened and I want to talk about it because not a lot of people were talking about it. So let's just take a look. So this was the headline that I saw, and I think a lot of people saw, was Mike Pence gets booed at NRA convention in his home state. Now, this is from a couple weeks ago, or like a week ago. I'm not exactly sure. Because what does time mean? But Mike Pence did get booed at the NRA conference in Indianapolis, which is very funny. It is very funny that Mike Pence walked on stage, said, "Welcome NRA," or "Hello NRA," or something like that, and then immediately got booed. That's very funny. And the thing is, the reason why I want to talk about this, the reason why I'm bringing it up, is because this is about where that ended for a lot of people. I really didn't see very many people talking about the actual like event itself or anything that Mike Pence said specifically. Most of it was centered around either Mike Pence got booed at the NRA, or the NRA thing happened, or Trump spoke at the NRA. Like, that's about what I saw. I think it's kind of a mistake for us to overlook this because I listened to what Mike Pence actually said, and I kind of find it a little bit terrifying. So I want to actually real quick listen to these clips and go over why what Mike Pence said was bad, and why we should kind of care about it. So let's go ahead and take a look. I saved a Twitter thread that kind of went through the actual topic by topic part of the speech. All right. So Mike Pence did get booed, and it was very funny. I will say this. His response was kind of funny. Like it is, I will give him that was kind of a fine way to handle it. But I want to go through what was actually said during the speech, okay? We don't need to actually focus too heavily on everything, but we're going to go through it. So, as Aaron Rupar here points out, we don't need gun control. Pence at the NRA forum blames recent mass shootings on trans people and mental illness and tries to absolve guns. Let's see what he actually says.
Violence that struck here in the heartland in recent days. At a Christian school in Nashville, Tennessee, and at a bank branch in Louisville, Kentucky. The Bible says that we mourn with those who mourn and grieve with those who grieve. And I know I speak with everyone here when I say that our hearts and our prayers
Thoughts and prayers.
are with
Thoughts
all
and prayers.
the families that suffered loss and injury in these unspeakable attacks.
First of all, Mike Pence does not give a like single solitary. I just want all of you to be aware of that. Not a single person who attended this event actually gives a single about anything that happened in Nashville. To them, Nashville is just an excuse to continue a genocide against trans people. I want that to be clear. What, like, we can sit here and like let Pence have his day saying like our thoughts are with the families. He doesn't give a none of them give a I just need you all to know that.
Ignoring the motivations of the trans activists who killed 3 children and 3 adults at that Christian school in Nashville.
So notice how Pence is framing this, by the way. When he's talking about this, he is portraying this as if what killed Christians was trans people. Yeah, the trans activist. Yeah, it's like they are in fact demons that want kids to die. Yes, he is framing this as a trans activist is killing Christians in school, and not just Christians, but Christian children, because it's all think of the kids. I need you to understand the framing here. Like, first off, we'll let him continue. We'll let him continue to speak.
And ignoring the mental health challenges of the man who killed 5 people and injured 8 others in Louisville.
Ignoring the mental health challenges. So the issue here, if you can't tell, to Mike Pence, is what is causing violence in our communities is mental illness and trans activists targeting Christian children.
President Biden and the Democrats have returned to the same tired arguments about gun control and gun confiscation. But we don't need gun control. We need crime
I do actually want to source on the gun confiscation thing because that is not something I have seen. And if Biden is actually talking about gun confiscation, then we can have like a talk about that. Obviously, like my political leanings are that like gun control is kind of cringe in a lot of ways and not in some other ways. But generally speaking, the framing of this still sucks.
Crime control. We don't need lectures about the liberties of law-abiding citizens. We need solutions to protect our kids.
Protect our kids. So already, Mike Pence, during his NRA speech, took the time to blame gun violence on trans activists targeting Christian children and mental illness. And note what language he uses here, by the way. He's going back to the like standard talking points, right? The our right to bear arms, individual liberty, the law-abiding citizen stuff, because that is the way that he can shield what he actually believes, which is going to become evident here in a minute.
Joe Biden spending trillions of dollars on their liberal agenda. I think the time has come for leaders in our nation's capital to give every community in the country the funds to place armed resource officers in every public and private school in America.
This is insane, by the way. Like, actually insane. There are like thousands of reasons. Like, we have data on how like school resource officers don't actually do anything to protect schools, broadly speaking. And he's calling for every school in America, public and private, to be given a school resource officer. For one, we apparently can't afford like basic social services, but we have enough money to do this. And the other thing is I see no issues. I see no potential issues. Me, when my homeschool like requires a school resource officer. There are some states where homeschools are considered private schools. I wonder if they would be allowed to claim to have a school resource officer. I don't know. I just really don't trust Republicans to be smart enough to not have that be the consequence of their bill, but it's still.
I believe the time has come to institute a federal death penalty statute with accelerated appeal to ensure that those who engage in mass shootings face execution in months, not years.
A federal death penalty statute with an accelerated process. I see absolutely no world in which that gets used for literally anything else. For one, the reason why this is bad, first of all, I do have a very big political bias against the death penalty as a concept, not just because of like moral reasons, but because it is actually more expensive. It drains taxpayer money more than just having prisoners in prison for life. And he wants to take a system that is already imperfect and already like falsely executes people, and he wants to accelerate it. Now, of course, in this video, and anyone who is going to, critique me is going to say, well, but he's saying he just wants mass shooters to have it. I'm sorry, I don't believe him. It is not going to just be mass shooters that are going to be affected by this. It will be other things. We already saw Florida instituting death penalty for CSA. Like, literally anything is on the table with something like this. And if he wants to accelerate it for mass shooters, what else does he want to accelerate it for? The people are already dead, though. So like an accelerated death penalty isn't actually going to do anything. The reason why you have a death penalty is to prevent other crimes from happening. And if the consequence has already happened, like, it's not worth it. Oh yeah, Aztec, he totally cares about the mental health of these people.
Finally, with so much violence taking place at the hands of those with severe mental illness,
the
answer to mass shootings is not fewer guns, but it's more institutional mental health in this country.
More institutional mental health in this country. What does that sound like to anybody? We starting to get what he's putting down? Because he's going to continue.
Last acts as governor of Indiana before I became your vice president, was we broke ground here in the Hoosier State on the first new mental health hospital to be built in 30 years. Men and women, we have got to get back to institutional mental health care in this country. Families with someone who is struggling, a threat to themselves or a threat to others, have to have a place to send that family member other than the county lockup. We've got to rebuild institutional mental health care in America. Now, while the other side talks reflexively about gun control, these are real solutions.
No, they're not. And don't worry, we'll get to the rest of it.
Backing the blue, protecting our kids, advancing policies that will ensure that justice is swift, and dealing with the dangerous mentally ill with institutional care.
There are a lot of reasons why that is terrifying to hear. Notice some of the phrasing that he used in that last part. He didn't say we need to create a better mental health care system. He said we need to get back to institutional mental health care. I want it to be very clear here that what Mike Pence is actually advocating for is bringing back insane asylums. And he wants to put trans kids there. People will say that is not what he's saying because he doesn't technically say those words. Mike Pence is way the fuck more dangerous than a lot of the politicians that we have. And the reason why is that Mike Pence is a Christo-fascist, and he is really good at keeping the mask on. He doesn't often go mask off because he knows that he can't get elected otherwise. It is very hard for someone with his cadence, with someone with his background to get elected being as mask off as someone as Donald Trump. He doesn't have the same kind of charisma. If he goes mask off, it makes the rest of the party look bad because as it stands, he is what appeals to the moderates in the Republican Party. And Mike Pence is essentially calling for the mentally ill, by which he will define as trans people, gay people probably. I mean, he literally did defend conversion therapy when he was the governor of this state. He will define mentally ill as anyone who is inconvenient to his political goals. That is ultimately what the fascists want to do. It's what they always do. And Mike Pence is a fascist. He's a very specific kind of fascist. I said he was a Christo-fascist. He is a theocrat, but he's not a theocrat. He's a Christo-fascist. I've heard the theocrat line. It doesn't describe him. He is a fascist. And he does it in the name of Christianity. Yes, Ickströms, it's all about separating the mentally ill and even special needs people from society. True. That is what he wants to do. Notice how he ended that too. The dangerous mentally ill. We're getting back to the scare tactics of the Republican Party of scaring about the dangerous mentally ill because it distracts people from talking about guns. It also distracts people from talking about the real issues that plague society. You think any of these people give two shits about the mentally ill, about anyone with mental illnesses at all? Because if they did, they would be supporting policies that directly helped people with mental illnesses. They would be funding healthcare programs that would give people access to stuff, like how trans people often need mental health care. They could just be funding that. But they don't, because they don't actually give. None of these people actually care about mental illness. Do not let them fool you. Yes, Aztec, they are the types that say ADHD and depression are fake too. That's the goal here. They want to bring back insane asylums, and they want to stick trans people, gay people. How long before we start getting to other groups? I wanted to bring this up primarily because I've not been seeing a lot of people talking about it. When I saw this article, I saw it in the context of Mike Pence got booed at the NRA. Mike Pence was clowned on, and we saw the clip. It was very funny that Mike Pence got booed. Now, let's kind of break from the memes a bit and remember it kind of was a little bit of a tepid boo. He did get booed, but it wasn't like a roar, right? The whole energy of the NRA thing was weirdly off. It didn't seem like anyone actually wanted to be there. None of the applause that he was getting, even though he would get applause, seemed all that enthusiastic. The boos didn't even, it seemed like they were confused. Like they didn't know if they wanted to boo. And that's actually funnier than him getting booed. The idea that everyone showed up to the NRA not knowing if they actually wanted to be there, and then trying to decide based on the energy of the crowd whether to boo or like cheer at each speaker. That's actually funnier than Mike Pence getting booed. But the problem is that, like, when I saw this article, it was just about Mike Pence getting booed. And I had to do a little bit of digging to see all of the other crazy shit that he said, because hardly anyone was talking about it. The other stuff that I saw about it was just briefly talking about the whole thing. Even that tweet thread that we were looking at was just a tweet thread live tweeting the actual conference. The very next tweet was talking about the next speaker. The ones before that I think were talking about other speakers that came before Pence. No one was really focusing on what Pence actually said. And even though I'm sure if I went through the NRA thing and like listened to every single one of, I mean, there was a presidential candidate there who like said he wanted to shut down the FBI. Like, I'm sure if I go down through the list, I'm going to find even more crazy and fucked up shit from people, because the like ceiling to where Republicans can go just doesn't exist. There is no limit to the actual like batshit insane things they'll say. But no one was talking about this in the context of like any of the things that he actually said. And I think that that is a little bit of a mistake. A lot of us were clowning on Mike Pence, rightly so. He is a clown and we should make fun of him because he is a terrible human being. But we can't forget that Mike Pence is influential. He does have some level of power and control in the Republican Party. Maybe not a lot, maybe not a ton. He represents this kind of like moderate center Republican, right? Even though he's not that, he is a Christo-fascist, but he gives off the energy of one. He appeals to more moderate conservatives in a way that Donald Trump doesn't. And it's important for us to call him out when he does this. Because if you saw the way he was framing stuff, he was framing everything under like several layers of euphemism. So that if you call him out on this stuff, he's got any kind of argument that he can use to say, well, I didn't say that. But this is what he wants. And it's important to call it out. Because he is more dangerous, ultimately, or people like him and Ron DeSantis, who can usually kind of keep the mask on a little bit more, are way more dangerous than people like Donald Trump, because it's a lot easier to show the kind of crazy shit that people like them do, because they just do it unapologetically. People like Mike Pence are dangerous because they don't do it out in the open. They shroud what they actually believe and then just do the things in secret. And it's important to shine light on that whenever we can. I don't want to bum anyone out, because I don't want anyone to think that like Mike Pence is like what Mike Pence is saying is like going to happen or anything. I think what he's saying is like bat insane. I don't think there's any world where this is going to happen unless we lose the House, Senate, and presidency in the upcoming election. But it is worth noting that, because if Pence is saying this stuff, it kind of indicates that this is where a lot of the energy is going to be going in the next couple of years with regards to Republican policies, especially when it comes to guns, especially when it comes to trans people, especially when it comes to mental health care. We need to be like watching this stuff, and we need to be calling it out. As much as it's fun to make fun of Mike Pence for getting booed, as much as it's fun to clown on Republicans for being batshit insane and having an NRA conference that barely got any attendance, and then everyone there seemed like they didn't want to be there or know why anyone else was there, there were a lot of fascists there, and we need to call them out for being fascist. Yeah, they're only going to get more radical and fascist. We need to make sure that we're keeping that momentum, keeping that energy, not just letting things like this go under the radar because the booing was funny. And yeah, it was funny, but it wasn't so funny that I want us to forget about what he actually said or let him get away with saying it. Anyway, I'm starting to repeat myself. We'll go ahead and cut the segment, and I'll see you in another one. Hi, thanks so much for watching. If you like this video, please consider leaving a like, comment, and subscribing to the channel. And if you want to support the channel further, consider leaving a donation at streamlabs.com/sagealexis/tip, becoming a channel member by clicking the join button, or going to patreon.com/sagealexis and becoming a patron. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.